if you don't do this with AI, you're left in the dust. The 10,000 hours thing is true. It's so true. And I look back at my career and I think, gosh, I spent so many years just grinding and putting in the work. And now I feel like I'm finally reaping the benefits because I feel really knowledgeable and I feel comfortable in my role. The 10,000 hours is a big thing, but the AI stuff, like you just can't be afraid. You just kind of have to jump in with it. And also know like the person next to you is learning it too. And the person above you is learning it. You know what I mean? Like we're all like, is this what we're doing this for? Okay, great. Everybody's trying to adapt in real time, so.
Welcome to Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast.
Welcome back to the Future Fuzz podcast, powered by Silver Fox, where we help companies enhance the power of video and business podcasting to generate new revenue. And today my guest is Bianca Bruno. She's the Associate VP of Paid Search at Good Apple. Welcome, Bianca.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So just to kick things off on a lighthearted note, what's the best thing that happened to you this week?
Well, it's okay. Full week's not over yet. Oh, the Bears. The Bears win over the Packers was a big one.
Yeah.
They played on Saturday and we made dinner reservations Saturday night at 4:30 so we could get home in time to watch it. We were the only people in the restaurant.
That's funny.
And it wasn't looking good. And the Bears are such a fourth quarter team.
Yeah.
So that was definitely the highlight of the week so far. And that will carry me into Sunday, which
that's good.
Who knows what could happen then.
It's amazing what it does to a city when the local team starts getting further and further and heading towards that championship. It's like there's a buzz. I felt it when I was in New York a couple of times when the Knicks made their run or the Giants went to the Super Bowl. And it's just like, it brings everyone together because everyone's just like, you know, it's rare that it happens now that everyone's like rooting for the same for the same person or the same team or the same organization. So when it does happen, I'm sure it lifts the energy of the city up.
Well, you notice a lot more of the swag, right? Like I have Bears stuff, but I'm not thinking about when I put it on, right? I might wear it on a game day or something, but the day after, like at the grocery store, just everybody's wearing Bears stuff. And we're like, okay, we're all pumped. Okay, great.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So you lead paid search at an independent agency in a moment where AI, automation, and fear are everywhere. So before we get into like actual tactics, what does your job actually look like right now?
Basically instilling fear in my team that they're going to be useless in a year.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was at a conference and they asked a question like, okay, with AI, you know, what do search marketers do now? What is their day filled with?
Yeah.
And the short answer is that your day is now filled with all the stuff that you wanted to do before, but you never had time to. And within paid search too, we work in a very dynamic space. So it's half retail and half pharma. So it's not like one product that's on a site that you can throw into a demand gen or Performance Max account and it'll automate for you. It's really very dynamic needle in a haystack audience, very specific KPIs that you have to reach. So the team's gotten a lot more analytical, a lot more thoughtful, and a lot more open to working with partnerships. So like we obviously have like a whole media division, and they're usually the ones that are like working with partners and vetting partners. And now the search side's having to do a lot more of that. Whether we're looking at like post-click or pre-click attribution or vetting for invalid click traffic or like partnerships for video, that's all way more integrated into our day-to-day workflow. So, the fear with AI, I don't know if it's like there's silos of fear, right? Like silos of fear from a larger perspective is this going to take over what I do day to day and affect my income? And then the other portion is if I'm not keeping up with the latest trend and knowing how to do something, is that going to affect my output and, my ability to grow in my career? And as far as like, taking over what our jobs are, probably not just yet. I think you really, especially now, I think people are getting more of a need for what is the human element? What is the ethical automation that you're applying? And then looking at, the tools that we're using, if we're getting better at them, the difficult part is like how fast everything changes.
Yeah.
I feel like by the time I create an AI deck that's regarding either, AI engines, AI search engines, or AI optimizations, it's already outdated by the time
Yeah.
I want to present it, That's kind of like the most difficult part.
What's changed the most in how you spend your time compared to even like a year ago?
Well, I mean, bulk sheets
Yeah.
and, optimizations and all that. That's kind of the biggest part. Although that was like a slow moving vehicle back in the day. So I started doing paid search around 2012, 2013. And that was like, I remember working on daily bidding, going through every single account, manually uploading site links. Everything was so manual and
Yeah.
tedious. And even back then, we built some sort of like, okay, how do I automate creating a campaign? So that was already like a slow moving vehicle, especially
Okay.
if you're working on a brand that's like a huge big box company or a huge corporation that has many, many products or lines of business that you need to build those out for. But now it's more about, okay, how am I optimizing the keywords, the language that I'm using, and then tapping into analytics like GA4 to say, how am I testing this best audience? How am I looking at what the next best action is? How am I looking at like the lowest CPC or lowest CPV or lowest CPA that I can get? So it's really challenging you to think more like a CEO rather than somebody who's just, this is my day to day
Yeah.
contributing to this portion of the funnel. Everybody has to think about what the big business picture is too.
Does that change how you think about building a team that's adaptable in this type of new environment?
I think that you're always going to need people who like the plug and play of the job,
Okay.
that kind of like where you can shut off the thinking part of your brain and go, I'm going to do mindless work. I think everybody low key enjoys that a little bit. They're like, I would
Yeah.
love to do
Weekend, don't think
tasks.
about work. Yeah.
Yes, mindless thing where I just plug in stuff. There's always going to be people who thrive in that. And then there's always going to be people who are going to get frustrated and probably impatient with that and going to want to deliver on bigger results. So I look at it more as who's going to create that environment to let their team plug and play and do the things that they're good at without saying this is just part of your job and you have to do it, but knowing that they're going to do it and do it at scale. And then who's the person that's going to say, okay, while you're managing that time frame, I can manage this time frame. And it works really cohesively.
One thing you mentioned that really stood out when we had our pre-call is that you kept a 97% retention rate on your team. And in a space as volatile as marketing, that's rare. So what do you think you're doing differently?
After COVID, we went completely remote for the most part.
Yeah.
And now we're definitely way back in office. We have our headquarters in New York. Something that I took from the Good Apple side was just prioritizing in-person time and in-person connections. So making sure that everybody felt heard and everybody knew more than, probably they needed to know about one another, So it wasn't like every time we got together, we talked about work. It was like, oh, how's your dog doing? Or
Yeah.
I know you watch this show or you have this hobby. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's like taking an interest in one another.
Yeah.
Another thing too is like I really stress, especially on my team, is that to make sure that your cup is full so that you can help fill others. Do not try to outsource yourself when you're burned out. I hold with my team quarterly wellness checks. So we do learning
That's
series every week, like on topics. So everyone's, followed up with the same product, tool, way of doing something. But our quarterly wellness checks are really just about how are we prioritizing our mental health to stay focused? How are we setting goals that are achievable and not just like, I really want to do this, but I have like no way to figure it out how to do it, but it would be cool to do it. So I really prioritize like the mental health aspect of it. And the biggest thing too is like being the person in between your team and leadership can be hard, right? Because sometimes I feel like you have to skew one way or the other when really you don't. You really just have to be making sure that those two are communicating to one another openly and honestly. That there's not any misrepresentation, and that if somebody wants a promotion and their goals to be heard, then I should be able to explain that clearly to leadership too. So it's a lot of it has to do with communication, and then really just checking into making sure everybody's okay and nobody's silently suffering with like, oh, I've got so many deadlines and I don't know how to do it. You'd be surprised as little as some people who are like, I don't have time to get up from my desk. It's like, okay, well, I will help you do that. And I want you to get up from your desk. Yes. I do not want you sitting at your desk. That sounds terrible. Like, get up, go for a walk, go eat lunch somewhere, you know. Prioritizing that kind of stuff goes a long way.
Well, it's important that you stress that because I remember I used to have a boss and he used to just give me projects, or I'd get projects, and the list would just get so long. I would just show him the list. I was like, there's no way I have enough time in a day to get all this done, just so you know. So like, what's the priority here? Because, there's only so much time. And I think having a manager or leadership that sees that, and sometimes I imagine the worker wants to perform and wants to demonstrate, or maybe is in fear of their job being like taken away. So they're just working harder and harder. And I think you having that 20,000 foot overview of like, hey, you need to prioritize self-care first. Otherwise, you're just going to get burned out.
And part of that too, to your point, when you are adding all those task loads, because I've been there, you kind of it creates more of a space where you're likely to make a mistake because your attention is on multiple things. So part of that is like proper time management. Okay, what is mindful work and what is like deep work? So mindful work being like plug and play, putting stuff in. Mindful deep work being like, I really need to create a huge report and it requires a lot of attention. But part of that is giving them an opportunity to make mistakes, but granting them space to say it's okay that you made a mistake, because we can now figure it out from there. Because having too much of that stuff and it's like everyone gets to Friday, or at least I do, and it's like, God, I'm gonna have to work this weekend. And then the weekend, you're like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I need mental break.
At some point, you need to prioritize self-care. I always like that example of putting your own oxygen mask on first that they tell you in the plane. Like, you got to take care of yourself before you can even think about taking care of others.
Which nobody's going to do that anyway. Like, I'd probably knock the mask. I'd be like, why is stuff falling on me now? Like, but that's in theory, that's a great example.
You also said something in our chat that stuck with me. You said innovation isn't just about tech; it's about meeting needs before they become problems. So, can you unpack what that looks like inside an agency?
Yeah, like I'll use the remote work as an example.
Yeah.
Right. So you go from a space where you're in office, you're next to somebody day to day. There's two kind of components of it, right? If somebody is next to me and says, hey, I need you to do this right now, you're not going to say like, yeah, I'll stop what I'm doing right now and get that done for you, right? So if somebody chats you while you're working remote, you're not just going to stop what you're doing. And that just kind of adds to the chaos, right? And then that really kind of led the way to how are we getting way more organized with how we block our time and how we manage our work. So I'm sure that's kind of like how the Mondays of the world, or like all these auto calendars, have taken off, right?
Yeah.
Because that was a problem of like, how am I doing work? People are interrupting me. How do I stop them? Yeah. That's kind of led the way to like, how do I streamline what I'm working on? And also block out interruption and save space for what everybody else is asking for. Another thing is, as far as innovation goes, and back to the earlier question about AI, I think everybody uses it in a different way, obviously. And what's been most rewarding for me is having my team tell me like, oh, I asked it to take this, and now 3 months later it's learned, and it's saved me, 15 minutes or saved me 20% of my time doing that. So I'm always amazed at what people find when they go out and then come back without saying like everybody's in one room talking about the same thing over and over. It's like, go out, find something new, and then come back and create it yourself.
Do you think there's a disconnect between what clients understand when it comes to innovation in agencies? I mean, do they think that everything is just going to be, they assume maybe that the agency is going to like adapt all these products and tools as quick as possible, and it's going to have an immediate impact on how you work with them? Or I'm sure they're struggling with the same thing in their own businesses as well. So maybe they're more realistic about what's actually possible.
Sometimes, yeah. I do think that there is a assumption that you're an agency. I've worked with an agency before. You guys all use the same products and partners, you know, like, oh, don't you know so-and-so at this brand, you know?
Yeah.
That's a major assumption. The other kind of component to that is if you're an agency and you build your own product or tool to do something, they automatically assume that we're going to be passing them, we're going to be charging them for it, right?
Okay.
And sometimes that's not really the case. Sometimes that's just like an investment in your tech stack or how you output something or how your team, you know, works together. Sometimes that's more of a misconception. Like the innovation that we're working on, they're like, oh, well, that means rates are going to go up.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily the case. It could be just an investment in ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it is actually a product. So the conception goes the other way where it's like, hey, we have this tool and they're like, great, send it. And we're like, well, it costs money because we
have to
built
talk.
it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the misconception goes both ways, really.
That makes sense. There's a lot of noise about Google being over and search losing relevance, but it seems like you've taken the opposite stance. Why is that?
Well, from a personal perspective, like I don't see Google being like, we should cut our biggest revenue driver. That would be a smart business decision. The other thing is now that I'm leaning way more into like just AEO visibility, and AI results regarding search behavior, search patterns, it seems like Google's really feeding itself, you know, like it's really like shoving the food around its own plate to make it look like it ate some. Because all of the AI overview information is coming from usually Google-owned sites or Google sources.
Sure.
So it just seems very cyclical and not so much of a concern for me. The other thing is like you can't really ignore data and numbers, right? So we still know that that's going to be your highest driver of traffic. Search is usually our largest budget across all of our clients for a reason, because it has the largest share of voice. One misconception now, or one kind of alteration from that, is the awareness play. So awareness now, if you're new to the program, if you're in a very heavily regulated market, or if you're in a very heavy market with competitors, I think a lot of clients just assume, okay, well, I can just be on search and get traffic. And it's like, well, no, nobody knows who you are. You know, like you got to get out there first. And weaving into that, you know, I don't know if you do you have people tell you like, oh, instead of Google, I use ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean, they'll do it. I mean, I find myself doing it when it's just a basic question because it's just handier to have. I feel like I get a more in-depth result, especially if I'm using like the app. There's no other stuff popping up, no sponsored posts, nothing in the sidebar. It just literally, you know, what's the cooking temperature for chicken? Like,
right. No, and that's kind of like my point is that you're not going to have to show up for a query like that.
Yeah.
No brands need to show up for that. Like I'm always like, can my dog eat this? You know, because it's like I dropped something. Can my dog eat it?
Yeah.
So what I always kind of stress is like, you don't want to show up for that stuff. Like that's somebody who wants an answer and doesn't really want to search around.
Yeah.
Somebody who's looking for a medication for their child and looking up symptoms or looking up the lowest price of something nearby them, that's a different story. That's a whole nother narrative of they're probably going to Google search to find that nearest them or get reliable sources or start their actual journey of I need to find an end result. not, I need an immediate answer. How long can marinara sauce sit in my fridge? You know, it's like, you don't need an ad for that. Like, Barilla pasta does not need to be serving for that. You know, it would be a waste.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
Yeah, it seems like we're all becoming a little bit healthier and getting less food poisoning or salmonella with some of these questions we're asking. Because I think in the past, people just wing it and just
yeah, they're like, go with your gut. Does it smell? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like the fundamentals of paid search still matter regardless of the platform changes.
We stress that too. It was about like a year ago, or maybe, I don't know, about less than a year ago. We had somebody on our search team that was optimizing based on smart bidding. Like, oh, I'll just change the smart bidding this way. And it was like, we need to start going back to make sure everybody has the fundamentals. Make sure everybody knows how to look at a campaign and say, let me look at all the keywords. Let me update our negative keyword list. Let me change our ad copy strategy or rotation strategy or geo strategy or time of day strategy. Everybody needs to have those very basic skill sets before they can just say, I'll update what the AI is doing. Because that's still what the client expects you to know. Yeah. You know, the client still expects you to know where, what time, and what keywords perform best. And we can't rely on, you know, the AI bidding tools to provide that in a client-friendly way, you know?
Yeah, they're coming to you for that expertise for sure. And I'm sure clients are asking about AEO constantly. And you said part of your job is telling them what not to care about. So how do you approach those conversations?
What I tell them not to care about is the basic questions. I just searched in ChatGPT and I didn't see my ad. It's probably a good thing, you know, because you're not in the target demographic. But what I guide their focus more towards is this is what the AI engines are choosing to show and why. A lot of them are relying on institutional sites, so very reputable .gov.orgs, because those have authenticity. Okay. If your website lacks that, you're not going to show up. So it's kind of just holding a mirror to the brand of saying, do you think that this is authentic compared to what's in the space? And the other thing is that not to worry about share of voice necessarily. It's about how relative you are to individual users, because now we know Google, ChatGPT, it's all collecting a lot of data about you and I that knows specific things about how to reach us and what our interests are. So it's not necessarily like I showed up for every single ChatGPT search. It's, did I show up in the right context? And if so, like, what were those appropriate citations? Are those citations accurate? And from a Google perspective, it's much less about share of voice and much more about the placements and the person that you're reaching, and did it drive, you know, a healthy engagement? And that's still an uphill battle sometimes. People just want to see, like, you know, you're not going to pay for a billboard and be like, well, it only shows to, you know, coupon shoppers.
What's a bad AEO goal you hear all the time?
Like I said, it's usually how can we show up more? And your question earlier, is this chicken good or whatever, something like that.
The cooking temperature,
you don't need to show up for that, you know? You not only that, but like you're not going to get an action on it. It might be that your brand is repeated over and over, and that might have some long-term benefit. Totally, it could. But from my view, I've done a lot of deep diving into what the AI gives as a response, especially specific to our clients. What I've noticed that they're usually all follow the same format: reintroduction of your question, and then a breakdown with citations. And they're usually some sort of scientific, fact-based, very thoroughly checked information that give a source of truth. So your brand might not fit into that, response in a really organic way.
Okay.
It would feel intrusive. So it's about finding like what is the right way to fit in.
Yeah.
A big thing that I've pushed back on clients is like, if there's other websites mentioning your brand, I mean, you have to look at to make sure that that is authentic information, especially in the pharmaceutical space. If your adverse events from a prescription is not accurate to what's on your website, like that should be addressed.
Yeah.
So that's more where I pivot towards like, let's look at what we can fix and what is addressable.
Okay. So digging into the tools, you've built an internal tool, CoreSight, using your own historical data. What problem were you trying to solve that off-the-shelf tools couldn't?
We have a team of media planners. We've got an analytics team. We've got a social team. We've got a search team. When it comes time to pitch or put together a media plan, those can often be, you've got 90 days to do it or you've got 9 hours to do it. I think CoreSight is able to work in both cases.
Okay.
The idea is that we've been, Good Apple's been around since, I think, 2011, 2012. We've built hundreds and hundreds of media plans, and we've gathered a ton of data. We know what executions work best, what partnerships work best, and, even leveraging goals by client. What CoreSight really is helping us do is put an AI lens on media planning while also taking the historical knowledge that all of our team has, which is years in the business, and saying, this is factually correct, or this is where I would make tweaks, as the person, as the human being in this, in the like AI case. And we kind of treat it, we really treat it like co-pilot. I'm big on like AI should be your co-pilot, it shouldn't be driving, you should be driving, but it's okay to have in the co-pilot seat. So with CoreSight, that's really kind of our internal tool to say, how do we take all of this data, all this information that we've had gathered over the past, decade, create a media plan for a partner, and then actually fact check it with a human mind and say, this created what we want or it didn't. The argument being, well, what can't you just do that with ChatGPT?
Yeah.
But ChatGPT does not have the data that Good Apple has delivered on. So when we talk about, we have a client in the past who gave us a media brief. We executed on those goals. But there's somebody on the team that said, you know what? I know that this isn't part of the media brief and it's kind of out there, but I want to sponsor a food truck. We can measure, right? Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're just like, we don't have a budget for that. But you do it anyway and you measure results from it. That's a big part of like the dark horse in your media plan that could actually drive effective results. Outside of if you just put in ChatGPT, create a media plan, they might just say 10% search, 4% social, 12%, you know what I mean? It's a very generic spitting out of information that pretty much anyone can activate on.
Yeah.
This takes what we've tried and what we've tested and what we've failed on and what we've succeeded on to create a better plan. And also adding in personas, unique audience types, interests. That's a huge part of it too, because something that I was actually just talking to a client last week was, I want to know what our Midwest market reads, and that's like a pretty, okay, we can figure that out. But it's a reasonable question. I mean, you can slice and dice that in any other way, by region, by interest, by what their daily life looks like, because they're looking at their consumers as everybody's unique and has different habits. We should treat our marketing like that.
That's interesting. It changes the role of the media planner, doesn't it? I mean, they have to have like more of a like leaning into their curiosity, right? Because now they've got all this data, they've got all these different sources of data, and it feels like it's more like an analytical and diagnostic role.
Yeah, and I said that from the jump. It's like everybody has to be more analytical,
Yeah.
you know? Everybody has to look at, like, if I change, 1% of my media plan towards this, what is the actual ROI going to be? Yeah, I think that is not just for media planners and outside of the CoreSight product, just using AI integrated, whether you're on the client side or an agency level. I think everybody's going to have to become more analytical and more confident in their data, because if your AI is saying you did this, like, you better be able to fact check it, and say, oh, it actually did do this,
Yeah. So if we're looking ahead a few years, what does an agency need to be good at that most aren't preparing for yet?
It's a good question. We've had a lot of discussions, internally, because, like I said, we went remote. With remote, we also made quarterly trips where we saw each other, prioritize in-person time.
Yeah. Now
with remote work, I think one big question we have to ask ourselves is, like, is agency life ever going to be the same? It used to be the days that your agency would just pop by with a cake or some beers or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really, you can't really do that anymore because people are like, well, I live in Idaho now. So that's a big one. It's like, are we losing that personal relationship that agencies, salespeople, any kind of, like, anyone who's trying to get in front of the client, is that something that we're losing? And then if so, what is the digital equivalent of that? It's not going to be a Zoom, like, magic show. I'll tell you that much, like, everyone get on Zoom for a magician.
That's funny.
No offense to magicians, but I'm just saying, every time we do, like, some sort of Zoom get together, it's like,
it never pans out.
No, it doesn't. And you could tell the client's like, I wanted to make it, but I actually didn't want to be on that call. So I didn't go.
So many other places they'd rather be. What new disciplines do you think will exist, or what roles will disappear, and which ones will actually become more important?
One that I've noticed is not just influencer, but influencer negotiation. It seems that the influencer world is just so vast. There's tiers of it now. And who knows where it'll expand from, and who knows what they'll be adding to their skill set. I believe that they're backed into a corner where they need to adapt and grow, or otherwise they will be gone. Because the traditional sense is like branding, but they make video content. They make, content on their social media. But are they going to be in a position where they're, there's paid search ads for them, or they're showing up with a voice on AI engines? That's kind of the adaptation that they might need to take. The other thing is the negotiation for them, because, like I said, there's different tiers. There's tiers of, like, out of this world stratosphere that people can't afford. And then there's people who are just, I know that they've got, 500K followers and this would fall under my budget. The negotiations between them and then protecting them, or not protecting them, but making sure that they're getting a fair rate compared to the others and lower. I feel like that's going to be a space that's going to adapt. But like I said, my biggest thing is that I think that they're going to be put in a position where they need to adapt into different media models, outside of just the norms of, I made a video with your product, here it is. What is the other thing? What is the AI lens? What is the AEO lens that's going to apply to them?
Do you do a lot of work in that influencer space, or are you connected with it at all?
Not me personally. We have, on our social side, we actually have a influencer subject matter expert. That helps with the negotiations of it. But what I found is that you're not like reaching out to the influencer saying, like, here's what it is. You're reaching out to the representative of it, just like a normal talent. And then outside of that, they're within an agency. So it's like an agency with a representation so you're so out of touch with them that it almost becomes like a media buy, like you're buying, print or something. So I'd be interested to see how that adapts for sure.
Yeah, that's going to change
And then
for
the
sure.
other thing is search behavior. A couple years ago, everyone was talking about voice search, and that was before clients were asking about AI ads. They were asking about, how do I get ads on my Alexa? I'm like, you don't. Alexa doesn't have an ads platform, but now it's going to be like, how are people searching?
Sure.
How are people searching in a private way that we don't have information about them? Because they're really aware of, like, they don't want to be remarketed to, because now everyone's asked, do you want these cookies placed?
Yeah.
So the search trajectory, I have no idea what it'll be past AI, but I'm sure it will be an ever evolving landscape.
So for someone early in their career hearing all this AI noise, what would you want them to focus on getting really good at now?
Just like be a plumber or something. Like, we're always going to need that.
That's true.
Like, okay, the power went out in one room in my house today, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to bed, because how do I fix that? No, I would say everybody faces some sort of something in their career. I mean, think about, like, before you got into podcasting, where you, like, everybody, it's a crowded space. How can I fit in? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
I thought it was late.
yeah, you're like, I'm so late. Why even try?
Yeah.
Or the same could be said for a lot of verticals that you're entering. But what I would say is that, one, not everybody who says they know or is giving you advice on what to do with AI knows what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah,
I
sure.
feel like I see so many ads that are like, if you don't do this with AI, you're left in the dust. I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing pretty good, so I don't know what you're talking about. But trust your instinct and get really, like, the 10,000 hours things is true. It's so true. And I look back at my career and I think, gosh, I spent so many years just grinding and putting in the work. And now I feel like I'm finally reaping the benefits, because I feel really knowledgeable and I feel comfortable in my role. The 10,000 hours is a big thing, but the AI stuff, like, you just can't be afraid. You just kind of have to jump in with it. And also know, like, the person next to you is learning it too.
Sure.
And the person above you is learning it. You know what I mean? Like, we're all like, is this what we're doing this for? Okay, great. Everybody's trying to adapt in real time. So,
and it changes so fast too. But your half joke about become a plumber, I've seen people focus on, like, trade schools and the realization that not everyone's going to be in technology and not everyone's going to be in AI. And some people just want to do woodwork. And there's Instagram channels of people who are just, like, knitting, and they've got 1 million followers and they've got an ebook and they're very happy. And so I think there's going to be this interesting thing about, hey, pursue your passion first. And now there's so many channels available, and people just like working with their hands. So I think we're going to see an interesting mix. It's going to be interesting times for sure.
it is interesting. The more technology is pushed on you, the more people are like,
Yeah.
I'm feeling Mayberry vibes.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to, like, go to the nickel and dime store. You know what I mean? People want that, like, like, now people are buying landlines. Did you hear about this?
No, that's awesome. I have chickens.
I saw this article about this mom, and she got it for her daughter, like, teenage daughter, and then talked to the other parents and said, look, she's too young for a cell phone. What do you guys think? Landlines, you know? So people want, like, the more they push technology, people are like, actually really like analog and like woodworking and whatever.
Yeah. That's so funny. What are you personally most curious about heading into the new year?
I know we've talked about this and, like, for a bit, but I feel like the news updates that I've been seeing about AI and AEO, it used to give me a lot of stress of, like, gosh, I got to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, whatever. If it is in front of me, I'll deal with it. I'm really more so looking forward to how the media landscape is going to be changing with all the things that we just talked about. People missing that face-to-face contact, people going back to a full office setting, what that means for what the growth of an agency looks like. And there's so many just unique modeling takes or marketing takes. What I love like following on Instagram, there's a couple of like, pages that just talk about out of the box marketing. And you see it more with like film. So for example, I think when Netflix decided to take over football on Christmas Day.
Oh, yeah.
Which was just like not cool to the NBA at all. They had a section of the stadium for Peaky Blinders bar to promote them. And I just thought that they didn't tell anybody. They just had it there. And I was like, that is so cool. Like
Very
these
smart.
little,
Yeah.
these little kind of
Call
things
outs
that
to the shows. Yeah.
Yes. We're not advertising it, but we're putting it in front of you to see,
That's interesting.
Those are really interesting to me. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, where marketing becomes less in your face and much more organic, but strategically planned to the nose organic,
Yeah, very subtle.
Yeah.
Like back in the days with just having the can of Coca-Cola on the desk in the movie scene, and you're just like, oh, they probably paid for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Bianca, thank you so much for this fun conversation. It was great to just kind of get an idea of how your mind works in this space with AI, and so many people worried about what the future is going to look like. And I think especially people in marketing wondering if it's coming for their jobs. But I think hopefully you put a couple of listeners and viewers minds at ease that it's not going to be too crazy.
It all comes back to just like work really well with people. Figure out the best way to work well with people, and what you do, what you work on every day, you'll naturally just get better at, the more work you put into it. Focus on how to work well with people first. I think that's just like a life lesson, no matter what business you're getting into,
Yeah. I feel like it should be the NBC, the more you know, flashing across the screen at this moment too. I'm dating myself with that reference too, by the way.
Yeah, RIP to that channel too. So yeah.
Well, thanks again. The website is goodapple.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Goodapple.com.
Anywhere else you want to send folks to connect with you or learn more and engage with your agency?
Follow us on LinkedIn.
Okay.
We have a great team that posts a lot of stuff regarding like, interviews that we've done and publications that we're featured on, and any kind of client call out. So we do a lot of LinkedIn posting. So
okay. Well, I'll make sure to have your profile linked in the show notes as well. Thanks again for your time in this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Harry. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.